A human hand clad in a black glove was seen injecting an unknown substance into the yolk of an egg. After a few minutes, the egg divided, producing an identical copy. At the same time, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a star was unveiled for Oscar winner Elizabeth Sparkle. As time passed, the star faded, and Sparkle's name no longer shone as brightly as it once had. She had since become the host of an aerobics TV show. Despite her age, she remained fit and looked quite good. One day, she went to use the restroom but found the women's room out of order. She entered the men's room instead, where, inside a stall, she overheard the voice of the show's producer, Harvey. He was saying that Elizabeth was outdated and that the show needed a young hot girl. He insisted it was time for Sparkle to retire, noting that her Oscar had been won during the dawn of cinematography, and the younger generation deserved their chance. Upset, Elizabeth went to lunch with Harvey, where he laughingly announced her retirement and then left with a friend. Staring at a fly in her wine glass, Elizabeth felt just as helpless. On her way home, she became distracted by workers removing her billboard and ended up in an accident. In the hospital, the doctor recognized her and complimented her, but she began crying, overcome with emotion at how all her fame had slipped away. Embarrassed, the doctor excused himself and left. A young nurse soon examined Elizabeth's back, muttering to himself that she was perfect for an experiment. Before leaving, he slipped a flash drive into her pocket containing a commercial for a product called Substance. Elizabeth read the name on the drive when an older man called out to her. He turned out to be Fred, her old classmate, who was happy to see her and suggested they meet up to reminisce. He scribbled his number on a soggy scrap of paper and handed it to her. Elizabeth feigned joy at the reunion, but deep down, she was spiraling into depression, especially after finding a bouquet at home thanking her for her years on the team. Revisiting the flash drive, Elizabeth plugged it into her TV and watched the commercial. It explained that the injection of the substance would unlock her DNA and initiate cell division, creating a younger version of herself. The process, known as the Matrix, would result in two personalities coexisting in one body, one improved, younger, and more beautiful. However, both personalities needed to exist in symbiosis, switching every 7 days while always remembering they were one whole. Elizabeth went to a bar and, observing the happy couples, realized how lonely she was. She returned home, and after much thought, she called the number provided to order the substance. She was given a postbox number to pick up the product, and the call ended abruptly. After a sleepless night, she noticed a newspaper ad seeking a new host for her show. That same day, a letter arrived with a card and the postbox number. With new resolve, Elizabeth retrieved the package. Using the card, she opened a hidden door in an old building and found a storage unit where the package awaited her. At home, she opened the box to find meticulously labeled bags, activator, stabilizer, the other you, the switch, food for the matrix, and food for the other you. The activator was a one-time use injection. The stabilizer needed to be taken daily and derived from matrix cells. Most importantly, the pair had to switch places every 7 days without fail. The next morning, Elizabeth stood before a mirror for a long time, studying the signs of her aging. Finally, she injected the one-time activator. Instantly, unbearable pain overtook her, and she collapsed to the floor, writhing as her back split open. Emerging from the wound was a younger version of herself. This new personality slowly gained awareness and, upon seeing her reflection, marveled at the young and beautiful girl in the mirror. After basking in her transformation, the girl noticed Elizabeth's unconscious body. She cleaned the mess, stitched up the wound, and went to bed. The next morning, she showered but soon felt unwell. She injected herself with the stabilizer, drawn from Elizabeth's spine, and then stepped into the living room, thrilled with her strong, youthful body. Later, she attended a casting call, buying a seductive swimsuit on the way. She took the name Sue and dazzled the producer's assistants, and eventually Harvey himself. Sue was chosen to replace Elizabeth as the show's host. She told them she'd have to leave every 7 days to care for her sick mother, which endeared her even more to Harvey and the audience. Sue began enjoying the fame that once belonged to Elizabeth, but soon it was time to switch. She attached special tubes to her arms to allow the substance to transfer. Elizabeth awoke while Sue slipped into a coma. The older woman cleaned up and visited the TV studio, where Harvey presented her with a gift from the crew. Back home, Elizabeth marked the days she could be herself on her calendar. At the end of the week, she received notice of a new batch of substance waiting at her postbox. They switched again. Sue now thrived, starring in commercials and relishing her growing popularity. But she began to worry about the Matrix body and built a secret room in the bathroom. Just as she finished, her neighbor knocked, complaining about the noise. He was instantly smitten with Sue. but she shut the door and hid Elizabeth's body in the secret room, replacing Elizabeth's portrait with her own. Sue's show became wildly successful, the ratings soaring. She made new friends and attended glamorous parties. One night she brought a young man home, but as things turned intimate, she felt unwell. Realizing it was time to switch, she performed an emergency stabilization procedure and spent the night with the man, delaying the switch. When Elizabeth finally awoke, she found the apartment in chaos and her hands twisted with gout. Struggling, she called the substance provider, only to be told the damage was irreversible and reminded that they were one whole. She cleaned the apartment and later watched Sue's show on TV, forced to admit how stunning Sue looked. When the neighbor asked Sue out again, Elizabeth ignored the door. She received another batch of the substance. On her way out, she stopped at a cafe, where an old man struck up a conversation, lamenting how 7 days was too long to wait to return to one's body. When he dropped his cards, Elizabeth noticed one identical to her substance card. She realized he was the young nurse from the hospital. In his eyes, she saw he understood. The longer the experiment continued, the harder it was to remember they both deserved to exist. He warned her that soon, the second personality would begin to consume her. Elizabeth rushed home and bumped into Sue's boyfriend, who didn't recognize her. The encounter reminded her of Fred. She called him, and her elated classmate arranged a cafe meeting. Elizabeth dressed up, applied makeup, and wore gloves to hide her hands. But when she saw a billboard of Sue, her own reflection crushed her spirit. She changed her makeup, then wiped it off entirely. Crying, she tore off her dress and stayed home, ignoring Fred's calls and binge-eating in despair. When it was Sue's turn again, she returned to the set and began filming the show. During the exercises, she suddenly felt something protruding from her buttocks. She stopped the shoot and ran to the bathroom, where she found a lump and pulled a fried chicken leg from her navel. She realized Elizabeth was binge-eating while she lived Sue's life. Enraged, she complained to the operator, but the only response was, "They are one whole." Weeks passed. One day, Sue summoned Harvey to announce that she would be the host of the New Year's show, the pinnacle of her career. But she had begun abusing the stabilizer, which caused Elizabeth's body to age rapidly. When Elizabeth awoke, she found herself decrepit, her hair gray and joints stiff. The operator suggested ending the experiment but said her condition couldn't be restored. Despite her failing body, Elizabeth couldn't give up the beautiful second version of herself. Barely able to move, she remembered Harvey's gift, a cookbook, and threw herself into learning new recipes. Meanwhile, Sue continued dominating TV screens. One day, Elizabeth overheard Sue laughing and mocking her, pushing Elizabeth deeper into despair. Fueled by rage, she vowed to end the experiment. When the switch came, Sue found the apartment filled with leftovers and empty bottles. She began stockpiling stabilizers for 3 months, but the day before the live show, her supply ran out. She called the supplier, who explained that Elizabeth was the only source. A switch was necessary. Sue, nearly unconscious, began the process. Her boyfriend heard strange noises, but was yelled at when he approached the door. Inside, Elizabeth, now a bald, hideous creature with a hump, emerged. She begged the operator to end the experiment and then retrieve the final batch. Back home, she dragged Sue's body into the living room and prepared the fatal serum. As she hesitated, staring at the portraits of Sue, she realized she couldn't go through with it. Elizabeth revived Sue. Upon waking and seeing the half-empty syringe, Sue understood what had been intended. Enraged, she beat her matrix to death. Afterward, she arrived at the New Year's show dressed in a glamorous gown. But mid-performance, she began to feel unwell. In the bathroom, her teeth fell out, followed by her nails and ears. Terrified, she rushed home and injected the last activator, hoping to create another version. Instead, a grotesque hybrid, Eliza Sue, was born. The monster recalled her audition and tried to beautify herself with a dress and a homemade mask. At the studio, she took the stage, but her mask fell off. Screams erupted as the audience fled. One man decapitated Eliza Sue, whose mutilated body flooded the hall with blood. The remains stumbled outside and disintegrated. Elizabeth's original face crawled to her star on the Walk of Fame, smiled, and melted away. By morning, the last puddle of blood was scrubbed clean, erasing all memory of the actress. The film, sometimes humorous but mostly terrifying, offered a piercing commentary on society's beauty standards imposed on women. It forced viewers to reflect on identity, self-acceptance, and what it truly means to be oneself. What did you think? Did the ending surprise you, or were you expecting it all along? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next movie breakdown. Want more? Check out our recap of similar movie right here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.